Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman, and in today's episode, I'm talking with Reverend Emmanuel, who is an empath who feels everything around him. He's very sensitive, and for many, many years, he used sugar and processed foods as a way to cope or not feel his emotions. But from his mid-30s onward, he decided to get rid of sugar and get rid of everything toxic in his life. And when he learned to actually deal with his pain and his emotions, he found that he didn't need sugar anymore to numb them. We'll get to what Emmanuel eats now and how he got toxicity out of his life in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. And while you're at aftersugarclub.com, why not take the cravings quiz? I created this cravings quiz specifically to help you start thinking more deeply about what triggers your cravings. And when you do this quiz, you'll get your personalized score as well as my practical tips to help you take your first step to get rid of cravings. Those free resources are at aftersugarclub.com. And also, come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at My Life After Sugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life, even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_lifeaftersugar. All right, let's get to my chat with Reverend Emmanuel. All right, so I'm here today with Emmanuel. And Emmanuel, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you grew up, especially with respect to food and sugar?
Well, now I'm a healer. I will use my voice and energy to assist people in their healing. Mostly people with cancer. I've assisted 113 people, stage 3 and 4 cancer.
Wow.
Growing up, we grew up very poor. So a lot of times sugar was what we were fed to fill our bellies so that it would, fool us into thinking we were full. And over the years, I'm a very sensitive empath. So as I grew up, I learned that sugar would numb me so that I didn't have to feel other people or even the environment that I was in. So I got used to using caramels, especially to numb myself.
Oh, and did it work?
Absolutely. Can't feel anything except the pains and aches in your body.
So the pains and aches in your body were like hiding the pains and aches in your life?
From the outside world. So I literally feel everything. I'm so sensitive. If I don't drink, if I go into a bar and there are more than 10 people drinking, in 20 minutes, I will literally be staggering and slurring. And for all intents and purposes, I'm drunk.
Wow. Wow. Is that because
So,
you're such an empath?
yes, ma'am. I absorb everything. So I don't go to those kind of places. And again, I used food so that when I did go into those places, it would minimize the effect from the toxic energy.
Wow. Wow. So were you, I imagine, from a child, you were fed sugar But as
Yes,
an adult, did you continue to use sugar in the same way?
I used sugar up until I was 35 the same way.
Hmm.
There was a time when I would have boxes of See's candy in my trunk just so that I could numb myself.
Okay. And at
So
no point did anyone teach you other coping skills than sugar?
no, no, I grew up around drug addicts and I saw what that did to you, so I never chose that route.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just the sugar and food.
Okay.
And processed food has a lot of sugar in it. So a lot of times when I would leave and go out into Los Angeles, when I would come home at the end of the day, there'd be 20, 30 fast food wrappers in my back seat because I would just pull in, numb myself, and keep going.
Wow. Wow. And what happened when you were 35 to change that?
I started to not be well, and I had to look at the reasons why I wasn't well. And the biggest reason was I was numbing myself and I couldn't feel. So I had to stop that. And then after I stopped the sugar, I had to be honest with myself about the type of people I let into my life, the things I was doing, all of the things that you ignore when you're numb.
Yeah. Yeah, it catches up to you eventually, I guess.
It does, yes.
But that's a huge thing to change when you've only known one way of coping.
It is. And it forces you to be honest with yourself
Mm.
and to learn why something hurts or why you don't feel comfortable someplace or why you don't feel comfortable around a certain person. So gradually, because we're all empathic to varying degrees, and I've never to date met anybody quite as sensitive as I am. So I really, it took me quite a few years to understand the environments. Even today, when I'm having sensitive clients that don't know how to cope and they I can't figure out what's triggering them. I'll take them to either Costco or Walmart on a Saturday morning because that's one of the most toxic places you can walk into.
Hmm.
And it allows me to see how they lock up their energy, if they're taking energy from somebody, what's triggering them, if something's putting them into an emotional, because a lot of times somebody could just be walking up and have a certain type of energy and you'll feel it and automatically go into an emotional state. And some of us, the first thing we do is grab sugar because it calms us down and makes us feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And so all those years before you were 35, uh, were you aware that that's what you were doing, or were you just doing it?
Absolutely.
You were still aware of it.
I was always aware of it.
Okay. Okay.
That's why I did it, because it would make me not be able to feel.
Yeah. And then it must have been really difficult to start feeling once you, I guess, what, did you just stop eating sugar?
I did. I stopped eating sugar. I cleansed my body. I went on the body ecology diet, cleaned all the my gut, got everything rebalanced.
And can you tell us just
Um,
what that is, that diet?
Donnie Gates, but the body ecology is a specific diet that helps cleanse your body from all the sugars and detoxes, and it gets your natural biome back into its natural state and healthy again.
Yeah.
So there's fermented foods, there's kefirs, there's a lot of things that clean the sugars out of your body.
Yeah.
No white bread, there were a lot of diet restrictions. So once all the sugars were detoxed from my body through the diet, it took me about 6 months. Um, I started to reintegrate things to listen to how my body responded.
Wow.
And I continue to do that to this day. If I go to bite something and my body has a shiver or a revolt, it's not going in my stomach.
Gotcha. Wow.
If I, you know, so your body, if you learn to listen to it, will be honest and it will never lie to you. Your eyes, your mind, they will lie to you every opportunity they get because we condition them to create denials. But our body doesn't know how to lie. And if we learn to listen to it and trust it, it will always tell us what's right for us and what's not.
Yeah, and we call that, well, I call it our gut feeling, and it's literally
Yes.
gut.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, it took you 6 months to sort of go not just from eating sugar, flour, processed foods to not, but I would imagine to learn how to have a new relationship with your pain.
Well, I don't have any now, and now I eat bread, but I eat bread where we grind our own flour. We naturally ferment it. There's no sugar used in it. And, there's no reactions from our body. It's nutritious, it's healthy because it's not the breads and the foods that's killing us. It's the processed and the sugars they add to it
Yeah.
and the stripping of the nutrients. So by milling my own grains, all of those nutrients are there. They're fresh. They're dense. The bread ferments 2 or 3 times more sour than it would if I purchased it at the store because all of those nutrients are there.
Yeah.
And you actually eat less.
Wonderful. Crikey. And so basically, you don't eat any processed foods at all?
No, actually, I don't. My kids, they've never had any processed food. We make everything.
Wow.
I
Is
make
that
I, I make applesauce, fruit leathers. Everything they eat is homemade. I
wow?
buy nothing from a box.
And do you make your own fermented foods and drinks as well?
Absolutely.
Which
My
one?
children have never had a soda. We do make nut milks. I have a machine. We process nut milks, and we'll make kombuchas for them every once in a while, and but no sugars.
Yeah.
We do use sweeteners. We have a beehive. We make date sugars. We use maple syrup sugar. We use date sugar, and so. But those are for specific treats, and when you're eating them, it doesn't numb you. It
Gotcha.
gives you a small little sweetness, but it doesn't numb you.
Right. And have you noticed that your kids were able to grow up without having to numb themselves on all levels?
They've have, they're very sensitive as well, and they've learned to navigate what they feel from people and in their environments. And again, they've never had a soda. We don't have a television. There's no stereo. They go outside, they play, they read 30 books a week. My oldest is 13, my youngest is 3, and they've only been sick once in their life. That was with COVID, and they were over it in 2 days with no medication.
Wow.
But
Wow.
but they eat real processed, no, nothing processed. Everything's real.
Yeah.
Even the meat, I buy my meat from a farmer direct. I know how it's fed, how it's taken care of. So I know what's going into my children's body.
Yeah. Yeah. And whereabouts do you live?
I live in Colorado in the Boulder area.
Okay. All right.
So I'm surrounded by farms. I actually live on a small farm.
Okay.
And we make our own cheese and pickles, and everything's homemade.
And so you're pretty much self-sufficient food-wise.
Yes, as
Yeah.
far as food's concerned. Actually, my living, I work at home, so
Gotcha.
we very rarely have to leave. I have chickens, pigs, and a dairy cow, so
Wow.
we're well set up and taken care of.
Yeah, yeah. And so, it's relatively rare, or I don't know, maybe it's not, but it's rare that I hear of someone who lives that way with that type of lifestyle. And yet it shouldn't actually be that surprising because people live like that for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
That's true. And the only reason I did it was because of health reasons. I chose not to eat the poisons anymore they were feeding us.
And, would you say it was a choice or it was a necessity or a bit of both?
No, it was absolutely a choice.
Hmm.
There's living the way I live and working. It's a lot of work. It's a lot easier to go to the grocery store and buy some boxes and sit down in it, but then you pay a price. It might be cheap when you're buying it, but then you got 80, $90,000 hospital bills trying to fix what it does to you.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Yep. Makes sense. Yeah.
I make bone broth. I cook my bones for 48, 36 hours when it's beef bones, and it makes a very rich, dense broth. I can't get that in a box at the store.
True. True. I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar. And would you say that in the US at least, there's something that can be done collectively so that people eat more healthily and then they have lower health costs?
Some people are starting to do that. There are, communities coming together. We're starting to become aware of how our food is poisoned here in this country. Mm-hmm. And there's a movement with homesteaders and people working in communities to feed each other. Mm. It's a small movement, but people are starting to become aware.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I've been conscious of my food and the cleanliness of it for a very long time. I lived in California for a long time, so all of my food was purchased directly from farmers. And only the farmers that I knew how they treated their vegetables and their animals. So
yeah, because that's the other thing. I mean, when you're buying boxed foods and processed foods, you have no idea. I mean, we don't know not only where it comes from, but how it was treated or how it was manufactured or engineered. It's not even actual food.
A lot of it, yeah. And now they have on the labels on the boxes bioengineered, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, if we even know what that means.
It is. And people don't realize that when they're buying meat in the market, those animals were killed with a lot of fear. So that muscle tissue is holding that fear. And we'll eat that, and all of a sudden we'll start to get afraid. And first thing we do is to get comfort. We'll grab a soda pop, we'll grab a candy or an ice cream, and it'll calm all that fear that we just ingested.
It feels like a vicious cycle.
It is. When I used to go to the market to buy my meat, when I had to, I would either go to kosher or halal because those animals are not killed in fear. They're killed with respect and honor. Commercial, they kill those animals in fear. So I would run my hands over the meat. And as the less fear there was, my hand would be drawn towards the meat. If there was a lot of fear, it would push away. Wow. So that's when I have to go to the market. That's how I purchase my meat, to see how much fear is in that. Because, we don't realize we could condition to automatically get dessert and a soda, and we're trying to delay all the stuff we've just eaten.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's a vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle. And how realistic would you say it is to imagine that, the current way that people eat in the United States, at least, would shift more to how you eat? Would you say that's realistic?
It's realistic. For a good number of people. Like I said, there's a movement of people starting to realize that, the food isn't necessarily healthy for us. And starting to find other alternatives.
Yeah.
And
is it sustainable with such a huge population, do you think?
If we went back to traditional regenerative farming, it's absolutely sustainable. What isn't sustainable is to poison the land and pay farmers not to grow food.
Mm.
It's not that it isn't sustainable, it's that we actually pay farmers not to grow food,
What do we pay them to do?
to throw it away, to not grow food so that we can keep a market where we want the market.
Mm.
If they actually grew the food the way the abundance that the earth provides, there would be very much profit for a lot of people because there'd be too much. So we have to keep the food supply in control. This is, again, we all live in a state of not really wanting to know. I just want to know that it's available.
Right.
And I wanted to know why and where. So I have a lot of friends in the regenerative community. I have a lot of friends that um, are on the opposite end of the gas business and the oil business. And I've seen both sides of it and what happens to the earth.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
for me, because I feel everything, if I put my feet in the ground and it's toxic, I can feel that. I will start to get nauseous. So it's very, and I truly believe that if we all felt as deeply as we could and should, there'd be no violence in this world.
Yeah, it feels like it's a virtuous cycle rather than a vicious cycle. And that it doesn't seem like sugar has anything to do with it. But from where I'm sitting, um, it's like when you let go of the toxicity, including sugar,
Mm.
then it gives you this freedom to feel good and do good.
And not only that, to be present to your environment and feel. I mean, you can put your hands on the grass and you can feel the joy and the vitality of the earth. You put your hands on a tree and you can feel the energy coming from the tree up your arm. The earth is extremely generous, but we numb ourselves so much we don't allow ourselves to experience that.
Mm. Yeah, and you've had that experience personally, and I know you're not the only one.
No, I'm not the only one. So, and they now have scientific proof that plants have feelings and emotions and they speak. Um, Studies came out a couple of years ago. There's other things like the planet's on a 7% wobble. 6 years ago, when I started telling people it was on a wobble, it was a 4% wobble.
And it's
So
gone up.
it's we can feel that if we allow ourselves, but that means we can't numb ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And that lack of numbing is scary for a lot of people.
Absolutely, you got to feel everything. That it's and my son, we live in Boulder, Colorado, just outside of the city, and Boulder, Colorado, it's like a concave bowl. The city sits depressed into the landscape, and all of the negative energy from the area settles above and around Boulder. It's a very toxic place, and my son hates going into Boulder because the anxiety and the fear and the anger that he feels there. He just wants to get out as soon as we go.
Hmm.
So we don't go to Boulder unless it's absolutely necessary. And a lot of people that are that sensitive, they end up on anxiety medications because they don't understand that they're just sensitive and that it's not theirs. They're just feeling the outside world. So I've helped a lot of people off of those medications by teaching them how to deal with their empathy and discerning what they're feeling.
Wow.
We,
Wow. And you were saying that you help people with cancer. Um,
yes,
yeah. So do you help them to change their diet or just to deal with the
well,
symptoms of the cancer or a bit of both?
a bit of both. Usually it's how they hold their emotions. A lot of people, 82 of the people that I helped to be cancer free, I had to teach them how to say no. People pleasers. Every time somebody asks, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Why did I do that? And and then they put that knot in there and that resentment because they didn't really want to do it. And eventually those knots and resentment turn into icky things. So when we change that pattern and they no longer say yes when they don't want to, that doesn't get locked into their body. Then we work out the emotions that are locked in there. And eventually, when all that is free, the body heals itself. Some people, it's their time and there's nothing I can do. But out of all of the people that have come to me with that, I've assisted again 113 cancer free, and 9 people we helped pass.
Wow. Wow.
In the last 15 years.
Yeah. They say, or I've read, that sugar feeds cancer.
It does. So that's one of the first things we cut out is sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it must be difficult because, if people are with stage 3 or stage 4 cancer, do they not think, listen, I just want to eat whatever the heck I want now at this point in my life?
some people do. The hardest thing for me to learn is that not everybody wants to heal. Most people just want to be made to feel better. Healing requires work and you got to deal with your stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't do feel good. You want to do your work? I will support you 100% through it and help you through all the emotional baggage you carry. But I'm not going to do it to make you feel good and you keep coming back. It's not my job.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's inspiring. Wow. Yeah, they're very lucky to have you.
some people, I'm told, I don't know. Once I fire them, I don't really keep in touch very much.
Gotcha. Yeah.
The the hardest, again, for me as a healer, I don't get sick. Most healers have burnout and they get sick because they care too much on whether the person heals or not. So I know the honest truth is I don't heal anybody. That's between you and God. I assist you. I teach you what you're doing and show you how to deal with the energy. And I've assisted a lot of people in their healing. But that's all. I can't be responsible for whether you heal or not, whether you do your work. And I have to have enough strength that if you don't do your work to say, I'm sorry, this isn't working for either one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And,
And let it go.
let it go. So,
Yes.
And a lot of people get sick because they start to worry and they start to care. And there was a point in my life where a lot of people would ask me what I was afraid of. And I didn't really have anything to be afraid of. So I would say, I'm afraid of becoming famous and people losing my privacy. This is why I only work through referral. I've never advertised.
Okay.
So I came home one day after somebody had asked me that, and I sat down and I thought about it. What I realized is that wasn't what I was afraid of. What my biggest fear was is over the years I had helped people and I left a little cord attached to them so that when they weren't doing well, I could call and say, how you doing? And take care of them. Well, what I realized was that wasn't my job. That was God's job. So I cut all of those cords and I let all those people go to their own lives. And the reason that I had kept them that way was that my fear was that if I cut that cord, who was going to love them? So
Yeah.
God's job, not mine.
Uh-huh. Wow.
So that
Yeah.
was a very, and I felt all of my energy come back after I did that.
I would imagine you were able to do your job better that way.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
But I didn't even realize that I was doing that. I
Mm.
had just always, let me check. They're not doing good. And it was taking a lot of my energy.
Mm.
So, and a
Wow.
lot of us do that. We take responsibility for other people and their well-being instead of having compassion and support. And you don't have to be responsible for them to have compassion and support and everything else.
Yeah, very wise words. Absolutely. Yes. I find that when I help people to stop eating sugar, there's a fine line between wanting to help and helping and kind of getting so invested in their well-being that you deplete your own.
Yeah, can't do that.
Mm, yeah.
And
That's
especially for me, I have most of my clients are terminal, but I have a gentleman who came to me in October. He was here last month for 4 or 5 days, and he got his last test results while he was here, and his cancer numbers had gone down 4.5 points from 10 to just above 6, 1 point above normal. So he was very happy. From October to February, that was a significant change for him.
Yeah.
And I have a gentleman that had a severe stenosis, inoperable. Doctors didn't give him a very good prognosis. It's down to a mild stenosis in 6 weeks.
Wow.
So, but part of that is we get the sugars out of the diet and we deal with the emotional baggage that we carry.
Yeah. And what I've found personally with the people I've helped and with myself is that you can't actually get to deal with the emotional baggage until you've reduced or cut the sugar, because it's numbing you. It's getting in the way.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're doing fantastic work in the world. And thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Wow, such an inspiring conversation with Reverend Emmanuel. And although I hear sugar referred to often as poison or toxic, he doesn't seem to be bitter or angry at sugar. He's at peace because he decided to let go of everything toxic in his life. And you don't have to do exactly the same as him, but reducing or cutting sugar certainly can't hurt. And if you think that that's easier said than done, then you're right. And that's exactly why I created the Freedom from Cravings Formula program. It's not just for reducing the toxicity of sugar in your life. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you get control over cravings so that you can finally live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly and feel confident in your food choices so that you can ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, and so that you never feel like you're on some kind of a restrictive diet. If you're at the stage of your life where you're finally ready to look after yourself, let's chat. You can hop on a free clarity call with me at any time by going to aftersugarclub.com and clicking on Program at the top. You'll also find the link with the show notes together with this episode. So go to aftersugarclub.com. Speak soon. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.